Hello, everyone. This is Deborah again. I'm your expat coach, and I'm here today to talk about financial planning. Oh my God, this is such a huge topic. I think all of us need help with this at some point or another, and especially when we're preparing to move abroad with different currencies and lots of expenses and expectations. We want to get the best advice possible. That's why I'm here with Jenny Ives. She's a financial planner, and I'm really curious to get her insight on how to best prepare for moving abroad in terms of our financially perspective. Hello, Jenny. How are you?
Good afternoon, Deborah. I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here. I know this is a hot topic. So before we dive into all your tips and all your experience that I know you're going to share with us, your knowledge, I would like to know something about you. Can you share something about yourself that no one knows, or few people know, or people wouldn't expect by looking at you?
Okay. Well, yeah, I suppose I'm going to be the numbers person. That's how people often describe me. I'll share 3 numbers with you, Deborah. So first of all, this will be the year I turn 50. So I'm looking forward to the next best 50 years.
Welcome to the club. I'm 50 already.
It's a good club to be in. I've lived in 4 different countries. So I was born in a country called Rhodesia, turned into Zimbabwe, and then as a young child moved with my family to South Africa. And in my 30s, me and my family, my husband and our son, we moved to England. And then during COVID, me and my husband decided to start moving to Portugal. So those are the 4 countries I've lived in. And over the course of my life, I've had 3 main careers. So I started off with my first love of being a catering manager. I used to serve 500 covers a day. So I was on my feet and pretty busy. And from there, I started my own business and created Visual Ives Productions. Completely different, very creative, an amazing lifestyle business. And then when we moved to England, I fell into the career of financial planning and became a chartered financial planner and found out I absolutely love helping people figure out their money.
Oh, that's amazing. Quite diverse. I would honestly never imagine that. So, and welcome to the 50 Club.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, speaking of financial planning and how you fell in love with that, and we spoke before this conversation, and you work a lot with people who are preparing to move abroad. So, could you share with us some of the most common mistakes that you see people make in that realm?
Right. Yeah. And how it is that I get to deal with people that are looking to move abroad is it often comes when they are looking to retire and are thinking about retiring abroad, which is one of the key areas I help people in. And the mistakes I see people making when they transition from having, say, an employed role or a corporate career into something completely different is that they make wrong assumptions. Because for us as people, it's incredibly difficult for us to envisage our future selves. It's just not something we're wired to do. By default, we live in the here and now and tend to make decisions based off what we're feeling right now. But the impact that compounding plays over 10, 20, 30 years, those tiny numbers layered on top of each other is quite huge for our financial futures. And we see this with inflation, like the impact inflation has, the cost of living over a number of decades is phenomenal. And with our human brains, it's not because there's anything wrong with that. It's just how we are. To try and see that is incredibly difficult. And then along with that comes not being able to envisage our spending patterns. So often, when we're moving abroad, there's this big upfront capital outlay and a high outgoing in the beginning. And initially, that can be quite overwhelming when you see money leaving your account at that rate. And but what people don't take into account is the fluctuations that come. With moving abroad, things settle. Fortunately, we don't carry on spending at that rate that we spend when we first move abroad. Things tend to settle. But, sometimes things can pick up again. So, in terms of making mistakes, we can become overcautious. And I see that with clients where they would have sufficient, but this is, becomes overwhelming, the capital spending and that. And so when people are overcautious, they try and avoid pain.
Yeah.
And paradoxically, in trying to avoid pain, they don't make the right decisions, and they end up in it's almost like dieting. They'll end up in this yo-yo effect of being cautious and then course correcting, but going too far. And then that's when they'll make these fundamental financial errors that, the idea with our finances is that we stay in the game, that we never make those financial decisions that blow us out the water, and we can't regroup. So, and like I say, paradoxically, it's being overcautious that I see when I'm giving people advice and planning their move abroad.
That's interesting. Because one thing that I also work a lot with people in pre-move is understanding what their goal is with the move. What is their what for? And people sometimes don't stop and think about this. They all know why they want to move, but they don't know what they want to build after the move. And I tell them it's not about the move, it's about the life abroad. and I think that ties in very well, because depending on what you're moving for, you're going to have different financial decisions.
Yes. And that why is very much the now, and the what for is that future self that is.
Exactly.
Because it's difficult to think about it, and so we avoid it. We avoid anything that's difficult. It's like exercise and diet.
Absolutely. And how would you suggest people prevent from making this mistake? Like you talked about the assumptions and, a pendulum, like going from one extreme to the other. How would you suggest for people to avoid this specific mistake?
Well, I probably should have said it at the beginning, but what I want to say is that this isn't personal financial advice. So nothing I say here should be taken as individual advice. And that's why we call it personal financial advice, because it's got to be personal to you. But in terms of what I see and how to prevent making these mistakes, is I'm a huge advocate for financial education. Is having the knowledge, and it's not just about general knowledge, it's about getting personal with their own finances. So my tips on preventing it would be: know your numbers. You must be crystal clear on your personal figures. That's your spending. So, often we're thinking about moving abroad and how much it's going to cost, our lifestyle abroad, when those answers haven't even been figured out for the country that you're living in right now. And, something else is your spending. Does it align with your values? Does it reflect? And I think this is, where it comes back to your what for. Does it reflect when you know your numbers and you look back? Do those numbers reflect who you want to be, what you want to be living for? And also knowing your sources of income. Where's the wealth coming from? And then if there's a gap between the income and the outflows, is how you can bridge those gaps. And I think we forget that, as you know, it's not just how much money we have in the bank. As individuals, we have so much resources we can bring to the table. And we forget about that. We just think about the hard numbers. When we think about our finances, we just think about the balance in our investments account, and we forget that we are, as individuals, we're all incredibly gifted and skilled, and has been able to tease those out when we
absolutely we all have tangible and intangible assets.
That's it.
That's a very interesting point. So could you share with us, like, if you have like a golden nugget, like one tip that you could share, what would that be?
So that one golden nugget is to avoid overcapitalizing in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And because what I see is people, you know, like I say, spending a vast amount of money in the beginning of their move, and that causes financial stress. Now, it may or may not be affordable, and unless they know their numbers, this can cause this ongoing anxiety, this low level of anxiety. And what I've observed with people moving abroad is this big capital outflow. And like I said, they don't know, they're not clear whether they can afford it or not. The anxiety starts building. And then you'll see that people move back to their home countries, not because they wanted to, but because they think financially they can't afford it anymore, or they start downsizing. So for me, that golden nugget would be not to overcapitalize in the beginning of your move. Find your feet before you start spending loads on property and so on.
Got it. So it's kind of like that motto, like rent before you buy.
Possibly it could be renting. It could be going on holidays and discovering, you know, areas that you might want to stay in or explore a bit more.
That's interesting. Thank you so much. So before we go, please share with us, how can people reach you? How do you typically work? Do you have programs, courses? You know, let us know how we can work with you and get the best of our financial planning.
So I used to be a independent financial advisor, but what I do now is the financial education. And I think, you know, to be able to build a financial plan and see what our finances look like over 10, 20 or 30 years. So a big part of what I do with clients planning their retirement is putting in all these figures, agreeing on the assumptions, and then helping build what-if scenarios, because life isn't just plain sailing. When you get to 50, you realize that there's lots of ups and downs. And so it's been able to put a base plan in and then alternatives. So what does your best future or your favorite future look like? So that's one, is doing the financial plan in preparation for retirement. And then another course that I do with people is what we call the game plan. And that's, you know, working on your goals and deciding what your favorite future looks like, then building an action plan to achieve that favorite future, considering what means you have available. And people often need teasing out, but, you know, it's unpicking those tangible and intangible assets and then creating an execution. So how are you going to put this into play?
Wow, sounds amazing. And do you have courses? Do you do individual coaching?
Yeah. So I typically work one-on-one, and it's virtually that I provide the one-on-one coaching. And I do investment courses because, you know, for people to understand the impact of fees, how to take control over their own finances, how to know enough so that they know when they go for financial advice whether they're getting good value for their money or not. So that's how I deliver.
Awesome. And how can people reach you? Do you want to share your website?
Yeah. So my website and my business is called Parita Financial Planning, and that is my love of Portugal coming through. So when you go on Pareto Financial Planning, you're going to see a lot of the Portugal influence. And Pareto means expert. So,
Yes.
excuse me for indulging a little in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for everyone watching, everything that Jenny is sharing here, her link to the website, etc., all of that is going to be in the description box. So you can just click down below and get access to everything.
Oh, that's great.
So thank you so much, Jenny. It was very, I loved it. I mean, I have a business background, so I'm always interested in this also financial part. And I think it's from my clients, this is so valuable because it's something that many people avoid thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think having someone to guide them and to keep them accountable helps a lot.
Yeah.
Or else it's very easy to procrastinate and to, just dive in, and then it can be costly.
Yeah. I think the part that I enjoy the most is often, I started off saying I'm the money person or the numbers person, but personal finances is about behavior primarily. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a huge pleasure.
Yeah,
thank
you for having me, Deborah.
If anyone has any questions for Jenny, just comment, and I'm sure she'll be super happy to answer them. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay. Cheerio. Bye, Deborah.